Hi, I'm Eleanor Hogan.
And I'm Tina Odu. We're social work apprentices pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work in the United Kingdom.
Welcome to another episode of the Decolonising Social Work Field Education podcast. Today we're exploring culture, community, and the importance of community work and the impact this has on people's lives.
As social work apprentices and soon to be social workers, we often meet people at crisis points in their lives. We're trained to carry out assessment, offer support, and advocate for change. But more and more, we're realizing that the dominant models we work with don't always reflect the full realities of the people we support. And often we aren't able to use the wider community support or incorporate people's cultures into our work.
I agree. Through my placement, I've really started to understand the impact a good community system can have on a person. In my personal life, the book club that I attend started as a place to share a hobby, and over time has developed into a social support system. This is the type of community support that can be missed when we're managing a crisis while on placement.
Totally. For me, Eleanor, growing up in a Nigerian community, support wasn't very formal. What I mean is we don't have a fully established social services system. There are only about 4,000 registered social workers, according to the Google search I've done recently. And for context, Nigeria is a country of about 200 million people. And in England, there are almost 100,000 social workers for about 60 million or so people in England. So support was your neighbor checking up on you, where food is shared, stories are shared and passed down. And it felt very holistic, even if we didn't call it that.
Wow. So the big question is, how do we as social workers bring that understanding into our practice? How do we learn from these models that centre people, culture, and the environment they live in?
That's where our guest today comes in. So let's welcome Thierry Kwizera, who is a social worker from Burundi, currently working for an organization called Social Action for Development. And our host today is none other than our podcast project lead, Associate Professor Henglien Lisa Chen.
Let's get into it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tina and Anena, for the very insightful introductions. I'm Henglien Lisa Chen. I'm today's host, and I am an associate professor in social work and social care at the University of Sussex in the UK. I'm very delighted to introduce you to today's guest, Thierry Kwizera from Burundi. Thierry, before we begin the conversation, would you please just introduce yourself, please, about who you are, where do you work, and where you come from?
Thank you, Liz. My name is Thierry Kwizera. I am from Burundi. I'm a social worker. I did a Bachelor of Social Work and Social Administration at Kampala International University in Uganda. And then right after my studies, I was employed by a Social Action for Development, SAD, and I work as a child protection officer. At the same time, I'm doing my master's in community development at Hope Africa University in Burundi. Thank you.
Thank you. To begin with, can you tell us about the mission of your organization, Social Action for Development, and how it connects with your personal journey into community and environmental work?
Yes, the mission of SID actually lies in protecting the respect of children in the families and in the communities, and also protect them against all forms of virus that may arise. And then Social Action for Development connect with my personal journey into community and environment work through enabling community members to participate in the decision-making processes. That may happen through focus groups and with community members, and also through empowering them to develop their own communities from the income-generating activities that we do conduct, and from the income that we normally provide to the community members, so that they can be able to be independent as they gain their economic independence. And then as also we try to reduce or to eradicate the gender-based violence cases in the communities that may arise as a result of high dependency on their husbands. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Thierry. I would like you to elaborate a little bit more about community, what does community means, and the community work. Because like you rightfully or you notice that in the UK, a lot of social work practice is much more to do with working with individual and the family. So the community work or the group work is not quite the same as how you practice in where you came from. So would you like to share your knowledge and experience with us as regard to community and community work or group work, please?
Yes. The community, to me, it's a group of people that have got similar beliefs, similar tradition, and of course, they got a common problem that they need to solve together. They've got some same interests. In that case, if we are work with in a certain community, we group different group of people who have got the same problem. For example, let me say a community which is under the threat of gender-based violence. So we group women because in most cases, though it may not be always, but in most cases in our community, when we talk about gender-based violence, what we hear first is a woman. So in that case, we group 25 women, and then we give them some training, especially on gender-based violence, because some of them actually may not even know what is gender-based violence. When do we talk about domestic violence? Because some of them may be similar to the cultural belief or cultural practice, and some of them may be part of the cultural practices that may not be taken as a gender-based violence. So in that case, we first take time to sensitize community members who in this case are women in that, and then we conduct our interventions. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much for a very insightful explanation about what is the group work of community work in Burundi. To give an example of a gender violence, and that is very quite different, but linking to the other episode, which was having a focus on gender violence in UK social work practice here. It's very much focusing on the woman and their direct or surrounded family, which is very different from your example in terms of working with a group of women who share the experience of being gender violence per se. Very different approach theory. How do you see those two different approach between UK and in your practice?
I appreciate the difference. I appreciate the way things are done differently, because even what a woman from UK might call an abuse may not be what a woman in Burundi may call it an abuse. The way we've got differences in our cultural belief, in our cultural practices, that's the way we should intervene. We should intervene differently. That's why in social work, as we tend to work with communities, we are always advised to always know and preserve the cultural belief of that particular community. Yeah.
Thank you. So what is exactly the belief and the culture that you're referring to? Can you give a few examples, please?
I think for us, some of the practices have been happening before during our ancestors. A woman has been down seen. For example, in our culture, whenever there is a problem at home, let me say if a teenage girl has got pregnant in the family, the first person to be blamed will be the mother. Yet they are raising that child together with the father. You'll find that in most cases, in this particular culture, women are so much marginalized, and they are so much put behind in different scenarios.
Thank you. So from your expertise, would you give advice or give a tip to social work students in the UK in terms of international social work students who work with predominantly white population, any tip or approach to bridge the differences and vice versa, like the white English social work student who work with ethnic minority or some population from Burundi? How can they work effective together, consider the different way of practice in the UK and the different in terms of what you just explained about the cultural practice in Burundi, which led to the system that is quite more suitable or more appropriate to do with the culture or community approach rather than individual approach?
My advice is just to give response to the problem that are there. For example, in our case in Burundi, we work in groups just because we need to work with them in groups. Here we provide groups interventions or community interventions based on the needs of the community. You may find in the community some of the people are left behind, and these people are not very many in that particular community. So in that case, you need to work with that particular group of people and not with the entire community. We should just give responses to the problems that are there based on the scope of the intervention and based on the real problem that are there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. And like you said, the culture practice is fundamental in social work practice, and I think it's similar like in the UK and elsewhere too. Another layer of practice which you need to consider is the systems. So I know briefly about you do engage with another important project is to do with water. Would you like to introduce us about your water project, please?
Yes. So the water project that we are doing basically is constructing the water tanks for the schools. We initially wanted to build 12 to 20 schools, but we didn't get enough funds. So we were given funds for only half of that. So we are building the water tank for 12 schools so that they can be able to store clean water. Some of them, they have water, but water comes and goes. They need a system of storing this water so that even if the water is no longer there, they have the tanks that can be able to store this water. Right now, the project we are doing is just to reinforce the system of storing water in schools.
So for the water project, it's one of the example of environmental social work. So while you are putting the water into the local, how can you ensure the way you put the water in is the way how the local want it to be?
The water project is actually part of the WASH project. It's not entirely part of environmental project. We did a survey before the project and we asked the schools administrators on the problem that they are facing with water. And all of them were telling that water is there, but we lack the way we can store this water. Initially, we were to build the tanks for 2,000 liters. But then after realizing that the problem of storing water was really a problem, we ended up building tanks of 10,000 liters. That's the way we know what they wanted because that's what they told us. Otherwise, you can't really do a project without consulting beneficiaries themselves.
Thank you. That's very insightful indeed. There's so much to learn and so much to reserve indeed. Apart from focus on the individual and their family, it's also very important for social workers and the social work student to have a knowledge about the local dialogue, the local issues, and the society, the social issue itself as well. So it's not only about the narrative in-depth knowledge, but the breadth of knowledge is as important as the individual work. But your organization is quite unique in itself in comparison with many UK organization that you do work with international partners, right? Thierry?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So when you are working with international partners, in your view, how can they better support teams like yours without reinforcing colonial dynamics? Implement the expectation about the way they do things, which is not always the same or not always meeting your best interest.
I think the international partners may support without reinforcing colonial dynamics when they really value the support that they are doing. Support is support in all languages. It should aim at enabling one to move from one level to the next level. So probably I should focus on that and that alone. When international support comes, it should come with the purpose of helping and not controlling. It should come with the purpose of supporting and not influencing. When people see things in that angle, we won't see colonial dynamics, which is major problem in this era. Then, of course, on the top of that, there should be a memorandum of understanding written and signed by both parties just to guide them before the project, to guide them on how the project will be implemented, the channel that will be followed, just to not to bring a sense of colonial dynamics and a sense of controlling in the implementing processes.
I think that is a very important point. Could you just sum up in one or few sentences about how to respond to not to control, but to support? How to do that?
How to not control and to support, I think should just what I mean from that is to see the interventions, the end point, the end result of the interventions, and not to bring in what we think now on. For example, I may find something with my intention of maybe, for example, let me say I'm a Muslim, I'm supporting a Christian community, then I come with my views of wanting to change a particular community into integrate my religion in a way that while knowing that will not solve their problem. So I think we should just focus on problem solving and not the influencing part of it.
Thank you ever so much. Oh, it's plenty food for thought that you provide, Thierry. It's my pleasure to have such a very insightful and very dynamic dialogue and conversation with you. Thank you ever so much once again, Thierry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now hand over back to Tina and Elena.
Thank you, Terry and Lisa, for that insightful conversation. This episode's really highlighted the importance of community support, something which I feel is lacking in the area that I live and work in. I think it's mostly lacking due to the funding limitations of what organisations can support with. When I was on placement recently, I spoke to a charity just asking for support with laundry for someone who could no longer do this. And the charity told me that they can't support with this anymore because of budget cuts. Hearing that made me feel like I was fighting a losing battle. And I'm wondering, how can we support the people we work with and when there isn't the resources to do it? But then on the other side, I've worked with local food banks and they've really gone above and beyond to offer support to vulnerable older adults in the community, which shows that even lacking funding and donations, it really is the heart of people that keep the sense of community going.
I completely agree with that and the importance of community approach. In my current placement, for example, supporting unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and young people, one of the most successful intervention in some way, or should I say noteworthy, is the community group or a youth group young people can go to, which is called Norwich International Youth Project. And that offers community-based support where young people feel safe and can access a range of opportunities. That links really to what you said about funding. There used to be youth groups, youth clubs in the UK, and these have been scrapped. and there's a lot of publication on how this is actually impacting youth and our young people. And there's also the Sure Start program where parents could access supporting centers, parents and young children. So this shows that this is possible in the United Kingdom, and it makes me wonder, why are we rolling that back? Is it as simple as a funding issue? What really is the cause of this, and what's the possibility for community-based social work in the UK in the future? Thank you once again to our host and guest for today, and thank you all for listening. Please stay tuned for more on the Decolonizing Social Work Field Education podcast.
You've been listening to the Decolonizing Social Work Field Education podcast, Global Dialogues for Change, an international participatory project with students, experts by experience, practitioners, and academics, funded by the European Association of Schools of Social Work, led by Associate Professor Henglien Lisa Chen at the University of Sussex, and co-produced by Mitali Kulkarni. Visit our website dialogueswfe.org and follow us online. Decolonizing social work starts with you. Stay tuned.